Perspective Shift is brought to you by fdalycoaching.com. If you're seeking assistance to help navigate you through a difficult time or feel challenged to reach your full potential, Frank Daly can guide you to a perspective that will allow you to utilize your imagination and experience a more fulfilling and satisfying life. Frank has been working with people for over 20 years as a coach, helping them understand the power they have to transform their lives.
Welcome to our brand new series on Perspective Shift, where we interview real viewers of our podcast, and they deep dive into their stories and how they have personally transformed their lives by applying these concepts. This is part one of Cheyenne's story, our very first guest for this series, and we are so happy to have her. Stay tuned for next week for part two.
Welcome to Perspective Shift. We have a guest on today named Cheyenne Naegler.
Miss Cheyenne, how are we doing today?
How are we doing?
Great. Thank you. Good morning. Good to see you guys.
Great to have you on the show. So you're joining us from Australia today?
Yes, Australia. A little bit about 2 hours north of Melbourne city centre.
Ah, very cool. Very cool. Thank you so much for getting up early.
There's a lot of poisonous animals out there, right? That's what I understand.
Yeah, everything's trying to kill you, man.
Yeah, no, I forgot there was an actor talking about that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Who it was? I guess Chris Hemsworth is from there, and I think it was he invited Matt Damon to come down. He said, "Oh, it's great," and he almost got killed like 3 times. Matt Damon. Like, dude, what are you doing?
I had no idea.
Yeah, it was funny because Chris Hemsworth tells the story, and I thought it was laughing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think the first time he got out of a car, like a snake, like a freaking poisonous snake came up to him.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Is it more like city living or like country, rural living where you're at, Cheyenne?
I'm country, rural living, so we have more of the death killing, chasing you things out here than we do in the city. Yes.
That's probably beautiful though.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Well, where I live is reminds me a little bit more of North Carolina, where I kind of call home.
Okay.
Because we have the mountain views and all that sort of stuff, but not much further north of me. It just goes flat. Because you guys have seen Uluru, the big Ayers Rock thing. It gets quite flat the further in you go. So yeah, I wouldn't want to go that far in because it's also freaking hot.
Oh yeah, it's like a desert. Yeah.
What's the biggest difference?
Well, it gets hot here too.
What's the biggest difference between the States and Australia, in your opinion? I mean,
the accent.
Yeah, well, there's that. My first instinct was to say the freaking flies. Because that's like they call it the Australian wave during summer. There's so many flies, it's like freaking flies that we use harsher language usually. But besides the fact that the seasons are totally opposite each other.
Yeah. So
I spent 18 years singing Christmas carols to myself every time it got cold, but it was in June. So it's a bit discombobulating. I think it's they are a lot more laid back. Okay. Much more laid back than Americans. It's not all, Americans are very patriotic and very kind of there's a lot of religion floating through our American culture, but in our Australian culture, not so much. Yeah, they're just whatever, mate.
That's cool.
All right, cool.
Just more living life.
So is there seemingly a primary religion in Australia, or is do you feel it is it Christianity, or is it something like?
Oh yeah, definitely Christianity. Yeah, Christianity. Right, so. Yeah, it's just not kind of in your face and in everything here. It's it's very
Is the media different, like your news and your stuff like that? Totally different.
When I first moved here, holy crap, their commercials freaked me out.
Really? Why?
Because they were just so graphic. There's one they call it the TAC. It's the road one. And it was just you see this of course it was a dummy or whatever, but very graphic of this car hitting this woman and the woman going over and splashing against the windscreen, and it was a wipe off 5 commercial, wipe off 5 kilometers per hour thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then their work safety ones, they were it was mild horror, blood and stuff and things flying places, and I was oh my God.
Yeah, we're a little more suggestive here.
Yeah, just a little bit. So, but I have stopped watching the news before I even left America ages ago because it's just so negative,
Smart move.
I have no idea if it's the same here or not. I would presume so from what I hear people talking about, but yeah.
I think that's just what the news is by design. That's
Mm.
kind of the point of it. So for everybody tuning in, we gotta start the show the right way and let everyone know. So Frank, what we have not come up with a name for this, but essentially, Frank and I have been throwing this idea around the last couple of weeks about bringing different guests on from the community. Listeners. Hey, there we go.
What? Yeah, because we started out with we would actually feature people with emails. Remember?
We were doing the spotlight stuff.
So,
yep.
And we thought would be a better idea, because instead of it just us reading the email and trying to pick apart whatever the person, if it was a situation or problem, which let's just have them on the show, let them hear it in their own words, and we'll have a conversation with them.
Mm-hmm.
How they came to where they are and where they're going, and how this type of material in which we feature on Perspective Shift, how it helps them.
Yep.
Or how it messes them up.
Don't put that negativity out there.
Right? At the end of the day, it's very cool, because this is an opportunity. So for anybody who's been listening to Perspective Shift knows we look at the world through the lens of stories. We are storytellers. That is what this experience is. And so as we tell different stories, and we have our own stories that we carry with us, etc., we often think that the stories are specific only to us, and that nobody else is experiencing this, etc. And this only must be me in my own world. And as Frank and I grow out and out and out, we realize that the stories are all very much so the same, but the details are very different. And so the more we can pull out these stories with different individual guests, such as Cheyenne, on this week's episode, the more all of us can relate to. And we're all going through the same different challenges, but we all have our own different details. Yeah. And so I think that's what is a good thing about, this little segment of Perspective Shift that we're starting to do. Yeah, because pretty much we're actually creating a community. It's not just me and Mike and everyone's listening. It's a community. It really is. Absolutely. And it's really how everything is started, So even Joe Dispenza and these big guys, it's all the starting is communities. It was a couple of weeks ago, he, based off of he was at one of his workshops, and I guess anyone that was invited that had been to one before, but it was I think 180,000 people all in an hour. For me here, the time was 8:30 in the morning or 7:30 in the morning. I forgot what time it was, but it was 180,000 people all did a walking meditation. Wow. And yeah, so it's just little connections like that, and how it affects the world. And they're able to measure this through instruments even. And I think we did a talk on that with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Yep. Where he actually did this and I want to say it's Detroit. I might be wrong, but he took a 2-page ad out, and 2 weeks before, it took a 1-page ad out 2 weeks prior to him going in and doing a meditation, and he told everything that was going to happen. I'm going to lower crime rate. I'm going to lower hospitalizations. Yeah. I'm going to. And he didn't say how, but then on the week in which this was also to occur, he went in there with 20 people and sequestered into a hotel, and they meditated. So we know this community actually expands. So every individual that comes into this new perspective of glasses half full, so to speak, rather than half empty, depends, because there's two stories going on there, like Mike said. Once we do that, we actually raise the elevation of humanity in order for other people that are struggling to get pulled up to the surface. And that's why we're here. So we're here talking with Cheyenne today, and we're going to get to know her and how she got into this, and why is she listening to Perspective Shift? Yeah, exactly. And what brought you to Perspective Shift, which is fun. So Cheyenne, where does your story kind of start? I mean, so you briefly before we jumped on camera, were telling us a little bit about how it sounded like you started growing up in the States, bounced around a little bit, and then made your way to Australia. Do you want to kind of start from there as far as growing up? Was it just you and your parents? Did you have siblings? Tell us a little bit from the beginning.
Well, I had an older brother, and so he's about 3 years older than I am. And my mom was mostly a single mom. Okay. I say mostly because when we left New York, I was probably about 7.5. Okay. And she had a boyfriend at the time and everything. And we eventually moved out to Texas for probably 5.5 years. And Yeah, it was a kind of an interesting life. My mom's boyfriend picked some really not nice people to be friends with. So that's when I first started to learn, like, well, I don't know where, like, I know it, but oh my gosh. When I knew when I was about 6 years old that I think we left New York because when I was about 6 years old, I tried to kill myself. I didn't understand, like, I don't, yeah, I know. I decided for some reason at 6 years old that it was smart to like to kill myself. I should take a bottle of like the Tylenol, which one, the one in the green bottle. I can't even remember what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The gels. Yeah.
No, there weren't gels back. We didn't have gels back then, man.
Oh, really? That's a new thing. Yeah.
It just Tylenol. It was just Tylenol. And I remember, like, when my mom picked me up from school, we didn't talk. I don't remember talking about it, the why or how come or anything like that. But I kind of think now as an adult, maybe that's why we left, other than the economy. So we ended up going out to Texas, and her boyfriend, who was one of those odd alcoholics that was nonviolent, like he was just kind of funny when he got drunk, picked some very not nice drunk people to be friends with. And there was a lot of violence that we were exposed to for many years. So needless to say that, like, I started getting those weird synapses
early on.
Yeah, very early on. And then from there, because she separated with her boyfriend, we went to North Georgia with my grandparents.
Okay.
And then the closest place that she could get a job was over the hill, as we call it, into North Carolina. And that's where she met my stepfather, who was a recovering alcoholic. Okay. And was very not nice man. Like, he was one of those people that would scream so hard at you, he would fall to his knees and his face would be red and that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of stories in there and that kind of thing. And because as a teenager, we make smart decisions. And I thought, well, you know what? Look, I hate it at home now. I'm going to live with my boyfriend. So I basically went from the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah.
And that was very tumultuous, to say the least.
Absolutely. And what, he had been 15 or 16 at that time?
18. No, like I think my brother left when he was 16 or 17, and he went and married somebody who ended up being quite abusive to him. Mm-hmm. But I was about 18 or 19 because I just started uni.
Okay.
University, America would call it college. Here, college is high school, and then you go to uni for university. So I had just started uni, and I thought, well, I'll live with my boyfriend, kind of thing. And in the end, when he finally physically punched me, I decided to go home. And then I realized that, wow, wait a minute, I must have a problem, because I was wanting to go back to him and stuff. And my university had that free counseling program, and they said, hey, look, you can either volunteer to go into a mental hospital, or we can put you in one. And I was like, okay, let's volunteer. At least I can sign myself out.
Exactly.
So I went in there, and they kept forgetting about me because I was so quiet, not a troublemaker. But it was, weirdly, and one of the lucky ones, it was probably one of the better experiences in my life. And had I not done it, this is where I look back at stuff and I go, holy crap, the universe was just setting me up perfectly. Because I think in the end, I got to stay in there like a full month. And I say got to, because after 2 weeks, I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want to leave. Mm-hmm. But I went home. They finally convinced me that I was okay enough to go home. And I went home, and my mom had told me that her and my stepdad were moving to Florida, and I could go with them or I could stay. And I was like, well, I love my mom. I'll go with her. Mm-hmm. And we weren't down there horribly long till my stepfather ended up killing her one night. I came home late, and he started his stuff, and I decided to be a tough girl and speak up to him, and it caused, all kinds of chaos. So then it kind of leads me to what you guys were saying just a minute ago about the same difference in things that happen and the walking meditation. The day of the walking meditation was my mom's birthday, mm-hmm. which is also the next day, the 24th, is the 30-year anniversary of her death.
Okay.
And I had planned to do this. I'm like, okay, well, how everybody's like, 30 years, you should honor, you can do something. So I was like, I would, like, when the thing came out from Dr. Joe saying walking meditation, I'm like, yes, all right, that's it. That's how I'll honor her. I can honor myself. I can help, bring the vibe up in the world and stop, domestic violence, maybe help with that. Mm-hmm. But then the universe said no, because I couldn't get into my encephalon, which is his website, thing. I couldn't get into it for ages. Finally did. This was all on Friday night, the night before, because, we should be prepared and do it several days in advance. But the night before is what we were going for. Like 10 o'clock going, oh yeah, I got to do that.
Yeah. I think I did an hour before, so don't feel bad.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You're in great company.
Well, because then I tried to down. Do what? Sorry.
No, I was saying I got that walking meditation today. I better get on my. I better get my.
Yeah, it was weird because I tried to download it and I started having errors, and then I finally got the introduction and I got the app, something to play the introduction, and then when I closed it, then it was gone out of my folders, and then the whole main part of the meditation didn't want to work, and I'm like, oh my freaking God.
Right.
a lot of bad language, and I'm like, all right, it's 12 at night. I'm going to bed. I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I'll work on it in the morning, and then it didn't come to fruition. I'm like, look, I'm not going to panic, because he said any walking meditation, and I have one of his older ones. And weirdly, when I went on the walk with my dog and was listening to it, I was just like really getting into the trees and the plants more so than usual. When I talked to my girlfriend, she said it had a very big nature focus, and I went, it was like I was connecting in.
You were.
Yeah, you were in that way.
It was really cool.
Well, I like how you said the universe didn't allow it too, because the more we have to try, or the more we have to force something, the more I realize it's not meant to be. And so I do not try, I do not force. If something like that happens, I simply say, okay, I'm going to move forth. You can do the different walking meditation, you can do whatever. But I think the more and more I learn about these concepts, the more I learn that it's not about there's no right way to do anything. There's no perfect way. There's no, we grow up in this, you grew up in the States, so you understand that there's like this perfect way to do everything. And that if it's done accordingly and done right, you will then find happiness or find success or find joy. And it's not really like that. That's more of like a story we've always been fed. We don't need to plan everything out, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. In fact, sometimes and most times, the best experiences come from no planning, spontaneously.
Yeah, everything actually is spontaneous. So people plan up to the moment of spontaneity, and they think the plan is what caused it. It's not. They actually even prove this in science. Like I was in a lab for 2 years and I discovered something. It took me 2 years. It took you 2 years to let go to discover it. Is really what it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's the moment of letting go is when that moment you said, I'm just going to bed, was the moment you let go and your nervous system relaxed.
Yeah.
That moment, that's what Dr. Joe would say. Ding, ding, ding.
And that is actually the real true purpose of the meditation itself, is to let go. So, all right.
There's nowhere we have to be. There's no thing we have to do. It's all around us at all times. It's falling into that zone of knowing and peace. And again, we're kind of taught that we need to like search for stuff and we need to find something outside of us, but it's always here. And it's just by getting quiet. And the easiest way is saying it's through relaxing. The moment we like relax, then we feel this like wholeness. And I love that. And I try to remind myself that when things don't go my way.
Yeah, just simply let go. Yeah. When you let go, relaxing is natured.
Yeah,
it's natural.
So Cheyenne, when you said your mother was killed, was that in front of you?
Yeah. Well, okay.
Like, did you have to call the police?
Yes, I did. I was 21 at the time. Boy, so everything seems to be 21, 51.
This is a
something interesting in that. So we hadn't been in Florida long, and I had started working at a restaurant that had a bar in it. Okay. And because I was 21 then, I was like, I'll have a drink after work with everybody. And because I was also paranoid, I was like, oh, because somebody followed me home. I don't know, because I've not really drank out. And so I had a coworker follow me back to my place. But my stepfather liked to play big, bad, important person. Mm-hmm. And when I pulled up, like he went straight to my friend's car and was like, he's like, oh, you're lucky that I, realized it was your car, because I've got my 9mm in my back pocket and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like,
oh gosh.
Yeah, right. So I said goodbye to my friend, and we lived in a mobile home park because, Florida, why not put mobile homes that can spin better when the hurricanes come?
Seriously, right?
Yeah. And it's a great place for alligators to have puppy snacks too. So those are always really good.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Well, there's a
So
difference between U.S. and Australia, right? You have crocs, we have alligators.
Oh yeah, there you go.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
And we also have a lot of wildlife that wants to kill us.
Yeah.
But I went into the trailer, and I, like, my mom, my stepfather stayed outside because he saw the neighbor's kid coming home with a couple of friends and stuff, and was like giving her grief about her mom being at work and whatever. And I looked at my mom, I said, that's it, I've had enough. You wanted to know when Craig, my brother Craig, moved out, if it was because of him or whatever. As I'm telling you now, it's because of him. I'm leaving in the morning. It's late now. I'm going to go to bed. And
We'll just cut this part out.
planning anyway of like escaping. The company she worked for at the time oddly had a place in Australia. But I think she was scared for my grandparents' life if we did, just from something that she said. But anyway, he eventually came in, and they went to bed. And I realized that I hadn't taken my, at the time I was on antidepressant medication, which I have to say, all the years that I was on it, I don't think it did 3/5 all for me. I've done so much better since I got off it. But I had it stomped. I did that, teenager thing, like, and did stomp to the refrigerator, slam the refrigerator door, slam the cabinet door, being all passive aggressive. And then I needed to go to the the toilet. I'm like, wait a minute, which word do I use? I need to go to the toilet. And went down the hallway, and where the like, say the toilet door is here, and then my mom's bedroom door was here. So it was like they were basically the wall adjoined.
Yep.
And the whole trailer was dark, and I sat down and did my tinkle. And right at the end, like, I heard my stepfather saying, if she slams one more effing door, I'm going to bust her teeth out with it. And my mother said, well, you do that crap all the time. And then the next thing I know, there was this boom. And like the whole place rattled underneath my feet. Like, up until recently, it was happening. My kid mentioned it. Like, I said, oh, I hate when those trailers on the back of the car make that big rattle. And she's like, Mom, maybe it's something, from your past. And I was like, holy crap, that's sort of the vibration and feeling of what happened. So I jumped up and I ran got out of the bathroom, went into their door, and I just said, did you hit my mother? And he's like, it's none of your business. And I'm trying to beat myself because I use it. I'm like, yeah, it is my freaking business, because that's my mother, and I pay more bills around here than you freaking do. And the next thing I know, he was coming out. He was holding a blanket in one hand, but he was like swinging at me, and I started like backing up and trying to block the blows, and I ran into the kitchen table. And I remember that instant because somehow everything slowed down, and I remember looking and seeing the knives on the counter and looking at the back door and thinking, which one can I do? Could I grab a knife and kill this son of a bitch once and for all? Because I hated the man since I was, I don't know, 18, or, well, probably since I was 15. And then like he got a punch in, but luckily he got my hand. So my hand was only swollen a bit the next day or whatever. But I decided that I would but just go out the front door to run for, and during the whole time that he's coming down the hallway, and as much as I can mimic and mock things, I cannot replicate the sound of my mother and these horrible sort of moaning screams of her saying, oh my God, no, please, God, no. Like, the pain must have just been, I don't know if she could see, I don't know why she was saying those specific words, but I ran out the front door, and I was only in my t-shirt and a pair of knickers because like I was getting ready for bed. And thankfully in the trailer park, they cram them in. So it was like, 2 steps, a step of grass, and then 2 steps to the neighbor's house. And I'm screaming, let me in, please, And she came out and she brought me inside and gave me a pair of bike shorts back in the day when those were the thing. And we called the police and everything, and they showed up. And this is another moment in my life where I go, the universe tells us things all the time. We don't realize or don't understand the message. but they showed up and they were like, they went in and they came back out and they said, oh, they said your stepdad said she is sleeping because she had too much to drink. And I'm like, yeah, nah. I said she was just awake, and my mom will have a glass of wine. You know how they always do that, I always call it a half glass of wine. I said she could have that for 3 to 5 hours in one go. Like that's as most as she will drink. I said, there's no way she's passed out. So they went back in there, and it was a little bit of a while. And at the time, I didn't realize my stepdad had called the head of the what is it called, neighborhood watch, because he was part of our community neighborhood watch. And so he came down, he pulled up his big old pickup truck in our carport. And then the next thing I know, there's like, you know, tape going up around it, the ambos there and stuff. Nobody's telling me what's going on. I'm like, you know, freaking out. And there happened to be an empty lot straight across from us. And I looked over and I almost lost it completely, because 3 times in my life, from like probably preteen and teen, I had this very vivid dream that I always remembered, where I could see the pinnacle of a house, and I could hear Native American war drums, and there was, you know, a big pickup truck like in the garage or carporty area, and then like my brother and I trying to get my mom out, going, come on, we gotta go before they attack, we gotta go, and like busting out like and taking off in the vehicle. And when I stood across, like I only had it 3 times in my entire life, when I stood across, I was like, holy mother, this is it. This is that dream that I had 3 times, which made sense because my stepfather was half Cherokee.
Okay.
So I'm like, my brain was trying to warn me, but I didn't understand the significance of it. So yeah, then the Ambos put me in the front seat with them, and my mom and I, because I'd only remembered a little bit before she died, you know, the Gloria Gaynor song, I Will Survive.
Yeah, of course.
I said, can I sing to her? Because they tried to convince me that, you know, they had to go slow because they need to put needles in her arm and all this stuff. And so I was singing that to her through the little window and stuff, because that became our like theme song. Yeah. So yeah, and we went to hospital, and yeah, from there it just kind of all went downhill. She never recovered. She never came out of it. I think she did say goodbye. Because I was allowed to talk to her, and I was holding her hand and telling her, you know, and I remembered my family was a little bit morbid. They always were like told about what they wanted if they died, and their beliefs and that sort of stuff, which as growing up, you think, oh my God, really? I don't want to think about that. But thankfully she did, because I remember telling her, Mom, I love you very much. Don't worry, I'll take care of Grandma and Grandpa, which were her parents, and I'll make sure everything's okay with Craig. And you know, this, as if you need to go, I love you very much. And then I took my hand away, but her hand kind of slid up her chest a little bit, which the doctors told me they're like, oh, that was just a, you know, muscle reaction, because she's not there, blah. And I'm like, no, I know that was my mom. She was saying goodbye. After that, I'm pretty sure she was mostly gone. We just had to wait for my grandparents to come down. Or I had to wait, because unfortunately my brother was in prison at the time. So he couldn't come help. Yeah. So yeah, and then I ended up curling under a desk and coping with it by, you know, daydreaming about becoming an actress or something at the time. That's what I wanted to be. Yeah.
So what was pronounced dead from? What is this, being like hit, bludgeoned, etc., like in the head or something like that?
Yeah, they call acute subdural hematoma. They considered her pretty much DOA, but they still tried everything they could do to save her and that sort of thing. And it was really hard. And he was allowed to come see her, because they didn't have any proof at the time. He was allowed to show up and be Mr., you know, look at me, I'm doting husband sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was he convicted after this for her death?
Yeah. Sadly, he got convicted a few weeks before OJ Simpson's trial ended. So he got like where he would have had a harder sentence. He got probably a lighter one. And then he didn't, my brother, when I referred to him being in jail, my brother, when he was a teenager, he had broke into a power station with a friend, and in the process of stealing copper with his mate, his mate took one of the transformers and for some reason threw it in the river, which then effectively did things with the EPA, and he, knew things that the friend had did and everything. So he ended up getting charged with all that. But when my brother was in prison, he actually spent more time in prison for that theft than my stepfather ended up spending in Florida for killing my mother, which I think that it was manslaughter, but I can't remember what level of manslaughter they considered it.
Wow.
Total bullshit.
So, and I used to think that if we were still back in North Carolina, because of how many people loved my mom and hated him, and the fact that the girlfriend before my mom mysteriously was shot, which they were not mysteriously, but they believed it to be him, but they didn't have the information. They didn't have enough proof, basically, that he kind of got away with that. I think his sentence would have been harder. And then because, I don't know why I didn't get the thing about getting up in front of the board, and I didn't find out till after he was out that, somehow I'd missed the thing. So,
All right.
So he wasn't in there very long.
Yeah. This is a fascinating story.
This is
so far. So where do we go from here? Like, so after that happens, you're in Florida. Where do you go from here? Like, because that's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a huge amount of stuff to take on for anybody. I don't care who they are, where in their life, but it seemed like you had kind of like a rocky childhood to begin with, and here you're 21 years old. You just lose your mom. So where do you go from here? Like, how do we get to this place where Cheyenne is sitting there talking to us right now?
Oh, geez, there was a lot. There's so much.
That's fine.
I've lived one long life. I went through a stage where, like, somewhere along the way, not horribly long after that, I moved in with a guy, and then he ended up throwing me out. And then I was living in my car, which they were trying to repossess. So I started couch surfing and eventually met somebody, lived with them, moved back to North Carolina. And then I worked at the casino there in North Carolina in Cherokee, and started getting my groove there and, that sort of thing. But a guy that I'd met many years before, we stayed in touch every once in a while. He was Australian, and I came out here to visit him. And after both my grandparents died, because I did my best to try to take care of them. Another universal thing protecting me from ever becoming a drug addict, let me tell you, because I believe it was acid the first time, and the next day I had to rush over the mountain to my grandfather, who was in hospital, who ended up dying from a stroke. And then I tried ecstasy and had to rush over to the mountain because I had this feeling, and had my neighbor finally break into my grandmother's house that found that she hadn't had a fall, and then she died from that fall as well. So I was like, yeah, okay, Universal, I got it. I'm staying straight, thank you.
Yeah, every time you do drugs, something happens. That's funny. That is like a paranoid thing, because, like, I dabbled in a little stuff and not a lot, but like, especially I was always like, what happens if this happens?
Yeah. Well, that's what the mind does with us,
Yeah.
Right,
It was gosh, and I came over here for him, and then the process, it wasn't working out, and I got a job to get enough money to come back home, and ended up meeting the man who became my daughter's father. And he was the last line in out of all my partners. There was probably only 2 or 3 maybe that weren't abusive or in some form or fashion.
Okay.
And he was the last in a long line of abusers. And I did that thing where, because he was not being very nice to my child or our child, and I hadn't been able to get him to not be nasty at times to his other children, that I was like, that's it. I'm stopping it. I'm stopping the cycle. This cycle will end with me. And even though I was terrified, it was so hard, because I spent my life being a people pleaser. And afraid to say no, because of the repercussions of saying no in a lot of situations were usually not very nice. So I left him, and I started raising my child on my own in a country where I had no family whatsoever. And I think I needed, I didn't really get into any of the Dr. Joe stuff, or, I always have been in therapy off and on most of my life since I was 14 years old. About the time my stepfather came into my freaking life. So I'd had a lot of therapy, but I always used to get frustrated, because I'm like, I'm not getting any, I feel like the growth is so small, so tiny, and it drove me nuts. But then a few years ago, about 4 years ago, once again, being almost homeless for like the probably third or fourth or fifth time in my life. And, you know, this beautiful woman and her boyfriend who barely knew me, great country towns come in so handy sometimes, took us in and let us live with them because they had they were living in a fairly big farm and stuff. So we stayed there 6 months, and then I got this
what's
place.
Your daughter's name?
Pardon?
What's your daughter's name?
Her name is Rhiannon Nakaya. I named her Rhiannon Nakaya. So that's, yeah.
Pretty name.
So, but we call her Kai because when she decided to go to high school, she was like, "Can I go by Nakaya, Mom?" And I said, "Yeah, that's fine." Right. So we call her Kai a lot.
Okay.
And I've got to remember, actually, I call them Kai because they prefer to go by they, them. Okay. But it can get kind of confusing in a conversation, and sometimes Mommy forgets. So,
yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, but we moved into this house, and I met some amazing people. Not that any of my friends weren't amazing beforehand, or that they didn't support me or that, but I think finally being in a place that, like, this is the best place that I've ever lived in as far as quality. Like, you know, it's a really nice quality compared to all the not so nice places that we've lived. And then meeting a couple of people that I felt so unconditionally appreciated and loved for who I am. And they trusted me to just like, they just were okay with me, the authentic me, even though my friends, most, like all the other ones, they were too, to a point, but they were always like, "Why can't you do this? You know, you just do that and eat the frog and just do it. And, you know, you got to pull, you've got so much potential." These two, it was like, they didn't care. Like, that's good. We're happy with, you know. And it made such a difference, the support and love that I felt in that. And it seemed like from that moment on, like I could feel it in my head, you know, like, you know, the Get Smart thing where the big metal doors open and all that, like ding, ding. Yeah. Well, it was opposite. Like with this one guy, I was sitting there talking to him, and all of a sudden it was like all the doors were being unlocked, boom, 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 going, "Oh my God, everything in my life has happened so I could get to this point right here." Yeah. Holy crap, this is amazing. And that's where I started learning really about connection, because he and I used to vibe. I have never vibed with anybody like that. And my girlfriend and I vibe hard as well. And then, you know, I started being also a late diagnosis of ADHD. Mm-hmm. I did that whole, "Oh, I can't meditate. Oh, I can't meditate." Yeah. And I'd put it off so many times. Yep. And but I started doing it once I hit the Dr. Joe thing. I'm like, I'm gonna do this. He says even a crappy one for 1 minute is better than none. I'm doing it. I will trade my brain like the puppy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So and from there on, it's just been, you know, and it's amazing to see sometimes the letting go that you're referring to earlier, when I can ask for something and let go of it, and then like within hours, days, or like maybe weeks, it's like, "Oh my God, I forgot I asked for that." Holy,
right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly how the universe works. That's why, like, these friends that you had that didn't try to push you in a direction where they said your potential ought to be doing this. We know that that's not how it works. We got everything we wanted as children because no one actually forced us in potential. Once we did, that's when we started not wanting to go to school, calling in sick. Mm-hmm. It's because prior to that, no one expected anything of us. So why do we expect it now? We think we're not going to get anywhere. I'm like, no, actually, you're holding me back by doing that. And so this story we just heard from the beginning to this moment in which you're smiling right now, anyone listening to this, I'm like, you know, because like my story is like, I had a teacher call me an idiot, like, you know, like, you know, and I overcame that. And then here you are overcoming this, or going through this, utilizing that story and taking that story as what we call lead and turning it into gold. This is what people need to hear to see, because they're like, "Oh yeah, you know, I have a greater problem than most people, so therefore I can't possibly get to this level in which they're talking about." And I'm like, well, your story just proves differently. And I think that's why hearing your story, you know, we didn't know why we chose you to be the first one. It just happened.
This is extremely powerful. By the way,
and I was just like, and you know, even the email you sent me didn't have anything near what we just heard right now. You know,
with zero expectations of this. So
that's just a small part.
Yeah, I can only imagine. But knowing that people are going to be watching on YouTube, that's why my jaw didn't drop. I'm like, I got to keep my mouth closed.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah,
Blown away. And
yeah,
just to see the amount of spirit and life that you have
yeah.
in you, like you are beyond a fighter. And that's what's so cool. And to see you even be able to put into words and verbalize, like, this was the moment that everything was getting set up for. And it just happens to be that same moment where you got to take off the mask and be your authentic, true self, your natural state. That's what you got from your friends was,
Yeah.
I don't have to try to be anything. I don't have to try to do anything. I am just whole by being me right here, right now, in this moment. I don't need anything. And that was so beautiful to hear you describe it in that way, because that's what we're all looking for. We're all running around thinking, oh, I got, like you were saying, I got to do this to get that, or I can't, I don't want to hear, I can't say no, because then that's going to affect, this and that down the road. And that's the story that we're all constantly running around in, which is, I need to do this, or I can't do that, or if I don't do this, then this won't happen for me. And so to hear you describe and bring it kind of full circle, that was beautiful. These two these friends that you had mentioned, are they friends that you are currently, like, you have a relationship with currently?
Well, one definitely. The other one, there's a lot of things that go with that one. He's we're not allowed to hang out anymore.
Okay. By choice?
um just for multiple reasons, but the two of us could probably get banned from like a hardware store because we could get a bit crazy. Hanging out.
Okay.
We feed each other stuff. But
yeah.
definitely the other one, we talk quite frequently. And then she's been so beautiful because she'll tell me, like, wait a minute, what is it mirroring? Bring it back to you. What does Cheyenne want? What does Cheyenne need? And I'm like, oh, quit Yoda-ing me, man. Don't
Right.
And she doesn't let me get away with BS and pulling the wool over my own eyes, which is beautiful and then painful at times. But I've also been fascinated, like all the years of therapy and everything, and the medication and stuff. And they're going, oh, you're just, you got to let it go. I never understood it. And in all those years, I never understood that when people tell you that, you need to heal, that healing could be freaking painful, and almost as painful as the trauma that you've been through, or whatever the situation was that you're letting go. I thought it was going to be something beautiful with rainbows and unicorns and shit. You're like, oh, I get it now. Yay. Oh, no.
That was the most authentic description of healing, is what you just said. That was so genuine and authentic. And you're right. It is shit falling apart. It is, oh my God, what am I going through? These deep, dark, emotions, etc. That's why we continually push this away, or we start drinking, or we start using drugs, or we're out partying. We're constantly trying to push down the feeling that you're talking about and say, no, this is supposed to be rainbows. I'm supposed to be letting go. But it's through that struggle that you're describing that you get out on the other side and have that beautiful smile that you have on your face right now, or have the, experience with your child, or whatever, your family, your friends. So it's very cool hearing you talk about this and put it into your own words.
Yeah, and that's important for people to know, because like they always think it's the exhilaration that they're looking for. It's not.
That's after.
Yeah.
When you realize it and you go, oh my God, that was amazing. I'm living from a different level now. How freaking cool.
And you look at just a cycle of life. One of the most painful, grueling thing is actually bringing a child into the world, where a man wouldn't know that, but a man could, like, damn, like that would. And so it's not just violent for the mother, it's actually violent for the child. And yet, but that's what, child, by breaking through the canal, actually gains strength in their immune system. Just like a butterfly having to break open the cocoon. It's very violent, but that's where the strength comes from. So, hearing your story as time goes on for you, you're going to have excelling in strength because of the endurance that you went through. And that's kind of very interesting. I come to understand that, this is my perspective, that we all signed up for the life we had, or have, I should say, and what we went through. but we hadn't experienced it. That's why there's no memory of it. Some people can cross memories. I have met people that way, but myself and most people I talk to don't have a memory of like what's going on. I'm like, you're an actress and you signed up for this role. Just know that, like, because the connection here I heard when you were telling the story. At 6 years old, you tried to kill yourself. All right, and here you are, 51, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah. So, at 6 years old, most people are like, that's just crazy. You do know there's another gentleman on the planet. I'm sure there's more, but Eckhart Tolle.
Yep.
At 6 years old, he thought about killing himself. He tells a story about how his house in Germany was being having work on. It had it was a 3-story house and had scaffolding. And his thought was like, if today gets as bad as it was yesterday, I could climb up there and jump off. But yet here he is, high in the spiritual realm of gaining people's ear and connecting with people. So
we'll take it a step further too. What did Eckhart say? He said in that moment, and I'm sure Cheyenne, you experienced something similar. He realized, who is the person who feels like they need to kill themselves?
Well, not when he was 6, but that happened later on in his life. He was sitting in a park. He was homeless in a park after going to Cambridge University as a university student. But that came in. He was actually getting ready to kill himself again. And then he realized, who knows this? Who wants to kill this? And so in that moment, we know Eckhart Tolle's story, what was that defining moment for you? Like, I know you got into Joe Dispenza and stuff like that, but like, what was this like, holy shit? Like, when was that? How did that happen? Because it doesn't, because once you understand that things can be different, that's when the hiking up the mountain begins. That's where the work begins. And that's where the pain is. Like, once you realize, okay, I'm climbing to the top of Mount Everest, and that's exciting. I'm like, yeah, tell me how you feel midway. Because it is exciting getting ready to do that. But, it's like, wow, like, and then you get to the top, like, wow, I'm like, yeah, now you gotta get down. Like, helicopter's coming to get you. So, so like, when was that moment you were at base camp, so to speak, and that thought came in and you decided to, because that's what it is.
You let go.
You climb that mountain. You've been climbing it ever since, and that's what it is. Where was that base camp for you?
Well, first I want to say, like we were talking about earlier, that whole we signed up for this thing. I can't tell you how many come to Jesus talks I've had with myself going, if you do this to me again, I swear I'm going to hurt you.
Yeah, seriously. Right?
And Jesus is like the producer. Like, you see this contract? You signed up for this. What do you want me to do? Just get in there and act. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. It's sometimes it's really hard to pinpoint, like there's so many points within my life where I go, oh, I see how, like, my name Cheyenne is actually, when I go by Cheyenne Christine, Cheyenne's actually not my legal first name, even though I've gotten paid in it and everything else. Cheyenne came from a moment, one of my many attempts at suicide, not attempts at like I started to, but I was stopped. The universe seemed to always stop me from getting to the point where I actually hurt myself.
And there's a reason to that.
Yeah, evidently.
We'll get to that. That's you helping through this exact same thing.
Yeah. And the next day, because we had a group of people that I 20 somethings that we all hung out and lived together and everything. We happened to talk about the energy of names, right? And I was like, we're saying people with an ick in their name usually are kind of icky, this. And I said, and I was like, whatever, like we're talking about the names that we really like. I said, well, I heard this father come in with a little girl the other day and her name was Cheyenne. And I said, I thought it was so beautiful. And they're like, what do you envision for somebody named Cheyenne? I'm like, I can envision somebody, beautiful, both physically and mentally, smart, have very strong boundaries, this, that. And they're like, you're already that. I'm like, no, I'm not. And they're like, yeah, you are. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And they're like, look, we're going to call you Cheyenne from now until you decide that you realize you now embody that word, that name for you. And that's kind of where it began. And at the time I was going to powwows and moon ceremonies and all that sort of stuff as well. So it just kind of, clicked in. And so that was a big turning moment. But for the Dr. Joe stuff, I think it was from having that first Evolve Your Brain book, the audio book that I was saying at the very before we started recording. because I listened, my email started with suggesting Jim Quick as a person on your thing.
Yeah.
And he calls self-help shelf help. So I'd had listened to a lot of audiobook shelf help at the time. And then I got that one. And even though I already had met this guy who was when people say trigger, they always say, like, think of something bad, but he would trigger me. And it was somehow between him and my girlfriend that I made, it was sort of it was a good trigger. Like there would be pain and processing and everything, but I knew like what they said or did wasn't the issue. It was something inside me that I actually needed to fix and go, oh, wait a minute. I think one day I was sitting there and I went, I don't know what made me think of it. I was sitting at this kitchen table on the other end of it. And I just got through sobbing, like full on ugly sobbing, snot running down my face and everything. And I'm like, holy crap. It's not that everybody's abandoned me. It's not that I wasn't enough to love. It was that I shine brightly and their dark is attracted to the light like a moth to flame. And when they try to come in, then the closer they get, the more they have to see their own dark, and they don't like it. So they try to pull me into the dark, but I can't stay there for long because I'm light, and I realized that's why my mom stayed with this horrible man. That's why the boyfriends did this, and because they wanted the beauty that they saw inside me, but they couldn't handle it. My beauty shining a light on all their nasty that they weren't willing to deal with. And I was like, whoa. And I think that kind of kicked in I need more of this. I need more of this. And like, who else can I do? Dr. Bruce Lipton, let's go on full on Abraham Hicks. I'd found a playlist on Spotify at the time, which is now long gone. They've wiped that out, but it had like 999 recorded episodes. I guess they found stuff off of, and I binged them all. I would just walk around constantly listening to them. And that just like between that and Joe's meditations, I joined a meditation group, and like it has become a thing where there's hardly a day that goes by that if, especially I might have like 2 or 3 days where I'll just listen to music and go about my business. But if something rough happens, and this is where you guys come in, if something really stress starts getting high, I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't listened to, anything that helps my brain. I'm like, oh, go listen to my boys. Put the boys on. What are they talking about now? And sometimes a few times I've been so much that I'm like, oh my God, they've got nothing now. What am I going to listen to? Who else can? I had to go to some of my backups.
Love that.
And start listening to them, or I'll put on like Healing Frequencies, a playlist in the background, or listen to like have affirmations going like quietly, so that I can like just have, I call it positive brainwashing. So I think that was sort of the pinnacle about two years ago when I kind of went, oh man, I'm just doing this. I am not going to be miserable anymore. I'm not going to have a crap life. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to, become fully who I'm meant to be.
Yeah, because now it's kind of like if you're swimming across a lake, you're more than halfway. So going back makes absolutely no sense. So there's no going back. That's the brilliance of it. Like you might question it, but that little. But when that dip happens in the physics of it, it's just a catalyst into a faster place. It's in physics they have this thing called they utilize this the rubber band effect. But the further you pull the rubber band back, when you finally let go, the further you go into it. So in metaphysics, they'll say the further you pull the rubber band into the dark, when you finally let go, that's how much light you'll get. So obviously
that's your trajectory, by the way.
Yeah, the mountain you built based on the story from you telling you from when you're 6 years old to you're 21 years old. I'm like, that's a big ass mountain.
Yep.
I don't know if like Mount Everest is even that big.
I know.
Truly. It's like, yeah, and then you started letting go and catapulting up the mountain, so to speak, to get to the pinnacle. And then the pinnacle is where it actually begins, not where it ends. Because we want to get to the top and like, oh wow, the view is amazing up here. We're down below. You got a lot of stuff going on down there. So, people hike to the top of Mount Everest. It's a physical thing, but it's more mental. It's like, I want to get to the highest peak on the planet to see what's possible. And when they do that, all of a sudden, oh my God, because down there, the mountains block their view, but they conquered the mountain. And that's what we're here to do. It's what we're here to encourage. Every human being on the planet is here to encourage the other person that, yeah, you conquer your mountain. You built it, conquer it. It's easy. How do you do that? One step at a time. And that's what a lot of people like I was the same as you. It was just one after another. Like this moment came up and it wasn't like I woke up one day, say like Maharashi did that, you know,
Are you
like
talking about the instant awakening?
yeah, he had the instant awakening. Mine wasn't instant. It was, you know, a little micro
Piece
doses.
by piece. Me too.
I microdosed
Yeah.
my way to waking up, you know.
Build on it. I
Yeah.
think I've been waking up since I was 20 years old. So, you know, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. There's a point where you turn around. Or maybe it was even when you were 6, you know, who
Yeah.
knows? And it's just, you know, back then it was just getting to the base of the mountain. Now it's about, okay, I got to start climbing this.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people out there, they feel the struggle. I'm like that, you know, walking up a mountain is a struggle, but it's exhilarating too. It's a different, tell the story differently, kind of like how you're smiling right now at us right now. Obviously, you know, you still got this mountain in front of you, but now you're excited about the mountain, not like, oh my God, look at this thing. You know, it's exciting. And then where are you going to go?
It is.
Because you're 51 years young.
Exactly.
You really are.
Yeah.
And you look very young, actually.
Absolutely.
You don't look
Thank you.
old. You don't, you know, and yeah, you look really good. So, I do like the name Cheyenne because Cheyenne. Where does that derive from? What's somewhat of its origin? Is it Native American?
Well, yeah, there's a Cheyenne tribe, but that's the white man's version. I believe they're part of the Lakota. Hopefully I'm not offending any Native Americans. I'm probably not going to, I mean, I'm a traditional American where I probably have about that much Native American in me at all, but I've always resonated with the culture.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, because when you said that, like most everyone I've heard was Cheyenne, but I didn't want to. I never studied the origin of it to proclaim it to be that, but I knew there was, you know, again, like, here in the U.S. we gave the name Cheyenne to the Native Americans. It's kind of like we named everything.
Yep.
But
as soon as we name something, we make it real. You know, that's the thing. When we put a title on something, this is good, this is bad, this is uncomfortable. Why would we be surprised if we experience that anything differently? And that's what quantum physics, like you're studying, Cheyenne, has taught us.
Not yet, but
observer effect.
soon.
Yeah. Oh, well, working on, etc. But still, you know, these are quantum phenomena that, you know, when we label something, we create it something. Same thing with like how the subconscious and the conscious mind work. Like you were talking about earlier with therapy. So anybody who understands the subconscious and conscious mind working together knows that, okay, approximately 5% of our day is us consciously aware and making decisions. And the rest is 95, the subconscious action. So like you're talking about with with any type of therapy, you know, when you're working through the conscious mind, just like you said, I felt like I'm making these little baby steps, etc. Not only are we making little baby steps because we're only using 5%, you know, and we've got a 95% unconscious who's still driving the show. But on top of that, we're just reaffirming the same pain and the same story. We're kind of like ripping the scab off every time.
Poking our finger in it.
Yeah, exactly. Not healing, you know, from within like we need to. But that's why, you know, therapy can often feel like you're saying, I went 15 years, I did 10 years of this, you know, and then never did I have the breakthroughs that you're having now. And the reason now is you are working in tandem with your subconscious mind. You're going into the operating system through meditation, you know, through your daily practice, through what you just called, I think you called it something brainwash. That is what we're doing. We've just been brainwashed.
Positive brainwash.
Yeah, positive brainwash.
Yeah.
We've just been brainwashing ourselves the opposite way our entire lives. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not worth shit. All these things that we say to ourselves day in, day out, we don't realize because we've never been taught or shared this information. This is affecting how I'm experiencing life. This is affecting who I meet, the experiences I have, the people I engage with, etc. My God, what life would be like if we all came in and from an early age, people started to share with us, hey, you came to this earth to learn and remember who you are. You came to this earth knowing that you're going to have multiple different experiences, and this is going to be experiences that you have chosen, experiences that you said, hey, I want to experience forgiveness. I want to experience love, compassion, all of these things. And the way they show up in the details that happen, it's not meant to be judged or labeled and created, with this story, but to find the deeper meanings like you're searching for and you're finding and you're experiencing, which is, oh my God, how powerful am I? Like you're stepping into your power. And that is such a great story, Cheyenne. It's like,
and it feels so good.
Yeah. And it's so well deserved. And this is the true you. This is what you've always been. You've always been there. And that's what's so cool is, wow, you're breaking through to the other side. You're seeing, the experience for what it is. Yes, I came here. Yes, there was countless traumatic things, but it's weird. We don't talk about, hey, we chose these experiences before we came down. I can't imagine if I had a mentor.
It's hard to swallow when you first realize it.
Oh, sorry. Totally. You're 100% right. And I wish somebody would just kind of share that with us growing up. But instead, we're taught the opposite. We're taught, no, you are the things that happen to you. That's what you are.
But if
that's bullshit.
Yeah, but if they did, this is why we're here.
Yeah, you're right. It would defeat the purpose of the school.
Yeah, if somebody told me, like, if I, because it's building a muscle. But really, what's happening is there's no more searching, because that's why I look at life as we're in an episode of Punked. Did you guys ever get punked over there
in Australia?
Oh yeah,
yeah, we did.
I'm sure it was
from the
and versions thereof. Yes,
yeah. And what it is you come to realization the outside world is always messing with us. Why? Because when you look at the outside world, it's always coming in informational backwards and upside down. And until you realize that, you're gonna be chasing your tail. So as we get to these places in life, we instinctively want to search for something, and that's when we get snagged.
Yeah.
No, just sit still, everything's here. And we get to these places where you're constantly searching for love, constantly searching for kindness. You realize you are always that.
Yeah.
And so now part of the journey is letting go of all the stuff, all the beliefs, all the
feelings of lack.
Yeah, just when you let it go, it's that's why when you read Joe Dispenza or you hear something, it's as if, and tell me this happens for me, but when you read his book, it was almost as if you read it. I mean, written it. Why? Because Joe Dispenza isn't saying anything profound. He's reminding us what our not an intellectual, but our essence of who we are already is. And he's just presenting it in a way that may have never been said this way. And he'll even say this, but these theories or these themes been echoing out since the beginning of time. And we're finally, like you did what you're doing with your family in this lineage, you're changing your cycle. There's no more of this going to happen. And I'm sure your daughter is probably like, thank you, Mom.
And you've changed her life,
Yeah. Well, you have to. So,
and I'm seeing my child change, even though, like I said, they're doing year 10 in Denmark. I've got a message from them not long ago saying, Mom, I've had this epiphany. And I was like, and I didn't get full details. It was supposed to be, I'll tell you later, but teenager, and then later never came. But I got the basic gist of it.
That was the epiphany.
And I was so happy because it's, like you've heard that, like the science of basically we genetically pass down the trauma. It's in our epigenetics and all that sort of like and so I'm like I'm now literally seeing in real time that when I heal, how that's actually affecting my child and setting them up for a better life. And it's just amazing. And that's sort of why I started on the journey of going to university and thinking, all right, well, I need to get a degree because I really want to teach other teenagers, maybe even the higher end of elementary here, which is we call primary school, which they go up to grade 5 here. And that's high school where it starts at year 7. So, which confuses me, but and I thought, what a wonderful thing if you could start teaching them even as a teenager or before, that positive brainwashing thing, going, look, you're actually in control. You're like, believe it or not, as much as you might have been told that you're not, you're in control, and you can have an amazing life if you choose to. And yes, we have to constantly, reprogram our brains, and sometimes they slide to, or as a churchgoers used to call it, backsliding to the falling off the wagon sort of thing.
Which is normal. We all go through that. That's the pendulum swinging. I experience that all the time. I know
Well,
what you
yeah,
mean.
but now with the science and quantum physics, so what you described when you actually when you actually make your brain more malleable, you actually change your DNA. So Bruce Lipton talks about this in the book called Biology of Belief. So you change the configure of the proteins in your genetic makeup.
Yeah.
You not only do that, you do that for actually your lineage. So you actually do it for your children.
Yeah.
So
In real time.
yeah, without even uttering a word or trying to explain to them. So even like this show right now, by us having this conversation, the words are at best half truths, but our immersion feeling that's emanating the words out, that's what's healing the planet. So when we do these meditations, have these conversations where we're smiling and getting goosebumps on our neck, that actually helps people. It's not necessarily the articulation of the words at all. It's the feeling, because we could say the same thing, but I could be like this, and I could feel bad about it, and then emanating that out. So we're coming into this new world, this new theme story of expansion, and the utilization of this, or I should say, the acquisition of this, is going to be a lot easier than it was trying to learn how to run a machine shop. If you say, you know what I'm saying. So the people of today are going to be pulled up by just this conversation, and other people out there are having these conversations. I've watched these people, listen to these people constantly, and it's natural lifting. So there's less work to do when you're at a higher altitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, an airplane doing 500 miles an hour at 32,000 feet, you barely feel it. But when you're trying to take off and you're doing like 120, I don't know what it takes to lift a plane off the ground. So, say 50 to 200 miles an hour, I'm like, you could feel like shit, this thing's going to fall apart. But when I'm doing 500 miles an hour at 30,000 feet, I don't feel a thing. So when we get to higher altitudes, it's simplistic. So this is the work we're doing for the next generation, so they don't have to go through the traumatic. But again, I think the energy on the planet's been lifting. That's why I feel somebody out there was praying on my behalf, and I stepped into it.
Yeah.
I don't know who was. I probably never meet these people, but like one day you wake up, like boom, it's like you walked into this wall of love, and then, oh my God, what happened? And then you want to share it. And that's why perspective shift started. Yeah. And you sharing your story is, it's pretty profound. I didn't know we were going down this road.
Absolutely.
But yeah. That's why I love having these conversations.
And it was funny because sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Well, I was like, I realized, like, when you asked me that, like, I got really excited. I was like, holy crap.
Us too.
But then I had to go through, and I realized with every level, I call them levels, like in a game, every level of healing, there's always like things like you don't realize, like worthiness or insecurity, like pops up again in a different way. And like I was telling the girlfriend I was referring to earlier, I'm like, dude, I don't know if my story is interesting enough. And she's like, girl, what are you telling me? I'm
and
like,
your friend's right. You have
and I'm like, but other people have more like crazy and interesting stories. She's like, girl, don't make me come over there.
We all have the stories. We all do.
Yeah.
Actually, think about this. I think about this often with friends of mine, and even my story. Right now, think of yourself sitting in a movie theater. The theater's crowded, and it's your story, and it's starting out. Where in New York were you living?
Long Island, New York. I was born in Plainview. My brother was born in Mineola.
Okay, there you go. You do that well. Oh my God. So here you are on Long Island, which is, a very interesting way to start out your life, because Long Island, especially Plainview, it's very blue collar, upper blue collar. It's very, it's a pristine place to live. There's very few bad areas on Long Island. And then you end up in Florida in a trailer park with your mom, coming to her demise. I'm like, that is a movie I would not walk out of.
Exactly.
That is not a movie, like, what I'm saying? But like, I would not want a movie where I was born with a silver spoon and I just had to polish it every day. And it's like, even though you think
we all think we want that.
Yeah. Well, try to avoid that. And in the avoidance of it, it's like we lose the silver spoons. Like, damn it, where'd it go?
Yeah.
It's in the pit
There's
bull.
so many times though, I don't know if you guys experience this, but there's times where you go, oh my God, I've had enough. Can I just have a break from all this, please? I don't want to be enlightened and unaware anymore. Can I just go back to being dumb, please, just for a little bit?
You are doing the real work. You really are, because I have felt exactly what you're describing. Where sometimes I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah, you thought you were making a movie. You're actually making a mini series.
Seriously.
So it's like it's like several seasons, and oh my God, it's like seriously. Don't you read
episode 564,000?
Yeah, that's why they always tell us in this world, like, you got to read the fine print. It's like, oh my God,
I never do. I just click agree, and I shouldn't do that anymore.
It sounds good, right? It's like, shit, I signed up for this.
I reckon most of my life I've been doing the as you used to say all the time in the beginning, putting the cart in front of the horse. So I reckon that would be
Cheyenne, one thing I have to bring up is so we've tried to commit the suicide, and never would the universe allow it. I know you know this, but there's absolutely a reason for that. And you shared a little bit with us on and off screen, and us communicating back and forth this last week or so. But you have such a story that is going to allow others to, like Frank said in the beginning, and we were talking about, you're going to let them come up to you. You're going to give them just enough space where they're going to go, I can do this too. And the ripple effect that you're going to have in your life, and you've already had with your child, is so important.
Well, you get to see it on your face.
So important. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this is part of that journey and that step, which is, I can do this. You were meant to talk. You were meant to share. You were meant to help and heal others. We're all meant to be healers. That we are, plain and simple.
Like I said in the email, that it was only recently, like so many times over the years, at least the last decade, people are like, oh, you should write your story. You should write your story. Because one of my favorite things is writing, poetry or short stories or whatever. And I'd be like, I don't know. But I have this beautiful psychologist now who, even though it's like, you think psychology, like we were talking about how they dredge up she has a lot of training in spirituality and the law of attraction and neuroscience, and we're always swapping podcasts and stuff. Of course, I gave her yours. And Lynn McTaggart, which was on your show as well, because I really dig her as well. And some people I'll give the amazing Clarks to, because not everybody's in a relationship, but still, I love them. Me too. Now I've lost my track here. What was I saying?
But I like how you brought that up, because a lot of times people will sit there and condemn psychologists or therapy. I'm like, it's not. It's like condemning food. I'm like, there's certain foods you ought not to be eating it, but there are great therapists out there. And a lot of times therapists got to the place when we discovered it. It's almost like with parents, like you tell your kid over and over something profound, and like, yeah, whatever. And then then they're sitting on the street corner and some stranger says, I'm like, holy shit, oh, you're not going to believe what it's like, you son of a bitch. I'm the one who told you
I told you this 5 times.
So, that's why I don't want to, like, the accolades onto therapists. There are some really good ones. There's some that, hey, we're all working through this. I think the theme is to try to help people. Some work, some don't. But in the end, they are part of our story. And it's very difficult to say that didn't work. I don't know what got me here.
What you just said though is like, it reminds me that one of the things that my friends remind me of is that whole giving your power away. Because we as a society, and I know I did it a lot, especially with everything I've been through. I didn't even have any power, forget it. But I would say, like, the guy that I vibed with, like, really, really good. I would say, oh, he helped me heal. Or, my girlfriend, I'd say, like, if it wasn't for you, I don't think I'd be. And they're like, no, you did the work. You're the one that did the work. I might have held up a mirror for you, or been there to help catch you, but you did the work. Don't give me the credit for your healing. And I'd be like, I guess, you're right. But we're so used to going, oh, they healed me, or they did this, or they did that. Like, and now I try to remember, like, you guys, your podcast, you're my helpers, you're my guides, you're my course correction when I need it, and the other things that I listen to, the other audiobooks, they're my course correction. I'm still doing the work. God, I wish I could hand it out.
No, but what you said is profound, because this is how cults actually started. Because if you think the person giving you information is who helped you, I'm like, no, we don't help people. Like, I guess you could say we do. We don't fix people. What we do is we service each other. We guide ourselves along, but just a little of encouragement. But you believing the encouragement is you doing the work. Because how many people did someone give encouragement to and they said no, but you're the one who actually took the gift that you actually, and guess what? To some level, you just utilize them to give yourself the gift. It's really what it comes down to. People, every personality outside of us is just a mere concept. We're literally talking to ourselves.
Just
but
which I do anyway when nobody's around.
So we don't look nuts. We do it in front of other people.
Well, so I
talk to you guys on your podcast. You just can't hear me.
I'll
respond during that.
I just need to say the story you just shared, Cheyenne, about that experience. That's exactly what I went through directly with Frank sitting right here next to me. When I started to understand these concepts and they were coming to light, etc., I would go to Frank and he was the first person I had where I could talk to and trust, etc. And I remember being like, Frank, thank you so much. Like, you have no idea what you're doing for me. And he was like, Mike, I am simply a mirror. And I am the mirror you needed at this time. And that's what you're experiencing. It has nothing to do with me. This is everything here coming from your heart, coming from you, coming from this experience. And so I know what you're talking about because I had that same conversation with Frank. 2018, 4 or 5 years ago. Like, I know what you're saying. And it's beautiful.
It is. You're like, how has it never worked with all the shit that I've been through and the stuff, your friends telling you, oh, you're smart, you can do this. It never sunk in until I met these two people. And it was like both of them, they mirrored different aspects enough, or like, well, one mirrored things to me and triggered me. And the other one would hold up the mirror and go, you've got this. Look at yourself. You can do it. Look how intelligent, look how, whatever. And it was sort of somehow those two combinations. I think the only reason that I was able to absorb them is I finally felt safe. And truly, that feeling of safety let me relax enough so it could go in. Nothing else could go in before because I was almost always in a state of panic.
Fight or flight. It's like what Dr. Joe calls it, That's the state we're all living in. Survival state. We can't let our guard down enough for any of that light to come in.
And I stopped doing that. I'm like, nah, I'm going to be authentic. If you don't like, it hurts when people don't like it, but I'm like, I'm just going to be me.
But you can tell just by how you're sitting there smiling and talking right now, you are so authentic and it's like awesome.
Yeah. And think about because even when you told the story after your mom died and you then at 21 years old took on the responsibility of taking care of your grandparents. I'm like, come on, so it's, to people out there listening to the story, one of the key things I took away from your story is you got to this place where you just simply, the pain was too much and you simply let go. When you let go, that's when the floodgates open. But the tenacity, we are strong freaking people. Like I'm not letting go of this, And I
still got crap I'm holding on to.
I know. You'll let go.
But hey, the way I explain that, it's kind of like a hot air balloon. In order to get into a hot air balloon, you have to set it up with the fire going in. So they have to tether it to the ground, and then you untether it to the ground. But then there are sandbags have to be released to have it not go up too fast. So we're not saying to throw or let go of everything, but slowly let go of that sandbag. That if you want to get this to a higher altitude, let go of that sandbag on your own. And here we are, we're in a process of letting go of old wanted beliefs. They weren't bad. They actually served a purpose. They really did. I needed the sandbag in order to get into the hot air balloon. So we wouldn't just fly it into the atmosphere too quickly. But then as we let go, we go to higher altitudes. So when you're at a higher altitude, there is no more sandbags. And then there are days with air, and there are days like, how did the sandbag get here? Like, oh shit.
What do you think this? If there's no more there's no more sandbags, that is basically that we've already transitioned to the other side. Because I think there's always going to be sandbags.
There is. Well, that's what he means when you'll see them pop up, and you're like, I forgot about this one in the corner.
But that's what I'm saying. The sandbag. And it's
subconscious. Damn you.
Yeah, exactly.
But as in the 3-dimensional world, when you understand the reason for the sandbags, you don't hate the sandbags. But years ago, we had too many sandbags that overran us. So we didn't understand it because as you're telling your story, you're realizing the catalyst that got you to where you were, all these characters. If it wasn't for Lex Luthor, what would Superman be? Some crazy dude in the air, like with tights on? Like, seriously, what's this guy doing? But because of Lex Luthor, Superman metaphorically had a purpose.
Yeah.
And then he was able to contain Lex Luthor and put him away for eons but he never got rid of him. You notice that? He never killed him. He just put
No,
him
well,
locked
yeah,
away
you can't
'cause
have dark without light, right?
yeah, it's conscious. So you never want everyone wants to try to get rid of stuff. What it is, you want to learn to not choose that. Period. I don't want to choose that. I want to choose this. But like, I would never get rid of ice cream. I just try not to choose it. Like,
How does that go for you though, Frank? I mean, come on.
Right? How's that
Like,
go
not
for you, buddy?
what? Tomorrow. Tomorrow
Yeah.
it'll work.
I got plenty of Kilo telling me I'm choosing that chocolate a little bit too often.
Yeah, but I would never want some senator in our country to make ice cream
Man.
legal. I don't want that. I want to make a choice.
Yeah.
I want and I use ice cream because last night Karen talked me into it.
Talk me into it.
I bet
I
you
can't
twisted your arm, didn't she?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You know what? I
Eat it, Frank. Eat it and enjoy it.
Oh, she told me she had it. That's all she had to do.
She told me that's a lot of arm twisting, Frank. A lot of arm twisting.
But I can't. If I yell at her, I'm a hypocrite, so I can't do that. I internally yell at her. She's like, okay. I'm like, yeah. Just leave it alone, right? Because once I say something, it's like, universe gives you choices, and she throws the stuff like she sticks the mirror in front of me. So I'm like, all right.
Good on her. Good on her. Well done, Karen. Well done.
Yeah.
Cheyenne, I need to ask you a question now. So I want to get your opinion on this, and speak freely and from the heart. Have you forgiven your stepfather?
That is a sort of tricky one, because I thought I had, and I, like with everything I'm learning, like you learn as you go through this process, that it's sort of, there's not a complete, it's sort of like a spiral. You go up, but there's always a dip back down that you go through for that next layer. I think I have like almost there, not quite. There's times where I still, it's weird. It's sort of like in a no man's land, and sort of not completely forgiven him, but I don't absolutely hate him as well. Mm-hmm. But I find that I think sometimes that it's dependent on who I've been hanging around. If I've been hanging around a lot of people that are, the traditional, oh, my day sucked and blah, 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 blah. When I kind of think of it, then I kind of go, oh yeah, I hate that son of a bitch. I wish he was dead. Mm-hmm. But if I'm talking to people like, you guys and like my girlfriend and stuff that are more of like, well, what was the purpose of this? What was the point? Why did we create this? Do you think? Let's ponder that. Then I'm more like, yeah. Oh, that's, that was an experience. It needed to happen. The three of us, co-created that situation. Thinking about those things, especially like when I had my child and getting them out of the abuse and stuff. Mm-hmm. It was like to accept the fact that I co-created that was really, really hard. I mean, that was sort of a thing, because I've always considered myself a very gentle person, non-violent, even though, I tease people and tell them I'll take them out and pull out a can of whoop ass, but everybody laughs at me.
Well,
to accept that.
Well, which one of those feelings feels better to you?
Oh, of course, the one that let it go, going, yeah, I could, like, once I got past the pain.
That's how I learned to forgive people. Well, that's how I learned to forgive.
Yeah. Also, to remember, like the part when you think about what happened and you get upset, it's because we want to get to a higher plane, so this never happens again. So you forgive the soul, but not the act.
Exactly.
So people get that mixed up. Like when you think of the act, it should be painful because it keeps you away from it. So don't ever try to, like, the pain is to remind you, but don't like.
I thought the pain was more of resistance, though. Like you hear like Abraham Hicks saying the pain is just your resistance from what you want to what actually is. So that's where I always equate the pain, but I hadn't really thought about the pain reminding you.
It is a resistance, but it's because we don't want that act. Like it'd be a weird world, a real planet, if like we didn't care about murder. Mm-hmm. So, but the thing is, as we come up against it, that resistance could push you back into a place to actually, how do we then alleviate this type of behavior? Because I don't want people to think this is a science of sticking your head in the sand.
Correct.
By no
Mm.
means. So when
No,
you're feeling,
I did that most of my life. It didn't work very well.
no, it doesn't,
Doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't. So like the understanding of forgiveness, it's a very difficult thing to really explain what forgiveness is, especially at the level of what you experience. But like when you think of the act, to just brush it over would be a weird thing to do. So you're going to feel that resistance, but that resistance could push you back into that higher realm, the higher amplitude. And there's where, okay, how do I train young women never to get into a situation like that?
Mm.
That's why it's needed. Just like when I'm
Yeah.
driving my car and I get distracted and I drift over, and before somebody had to honk their horn. Well, now somebody put a beeping mechanism on my car, so it seldom happens now. And if it keeps
Yeah.
beeping, maybe I need to go back to driving school. But nonetheless, these things are there for a reason. But imagine when you think about it, you're less hit than the moment in which it happened. But it's to remind us to stay in this realm, to stay there.
Yeah.
And so that's why when you start to tell the story a little bit different, yeah, but exactly what Abraham said was true, because it's resistance. But yeah, we don't want that act to ever happen again if it's possible.
Well, and because also if you don't listen to the signs and you don't listen to that little tinge of the beep beep beep, the universe will eventually smack you over the freaking head with a giant mallet and go bam. Now you're paying attention because you're telling you not to go that way.
Yeah, because a semi truck will run your car over. It's pretty much what it is. So that beeping now serves a purpose for me to get back into track, because sometimes I believe when we think about something that we didn't like or the world doesn't like, it pushes us back. But then at some weird way, we could come up with some bit of solution to where we can minimize this on the planet. So sometimes a little bit of rage kicks you back. Like Abraham talks about the levels, right? There's joy, and then this demise or complete depression. And if you're in joy and you hit anger, if you don't push back into it, you're going down to depression. But if you're in depression and you're heading up the scale and you get into anger, well, like you hear people say, like, I liked you better when you're depressed. No, anger is going to be the catalyst to get me behind it. So understanding how these emotions work, we're still an ebb and flow experience we're having. But the other experience we're having too is we're actually witnessing everything. And that's how we can separate from the characters in which we're in. And that's where ultimate forgiveness comes. Because like,
separating.
Yeah, Cheyenne or Christine, however, whatever you signed on, you're just acting out a role, kind of like how Tom Hanks acted out Forrest Gump. But Tom Hanks is not Forrest Gump, but he immersed himself into fulfillment of the role in the story. So we'd all get something out of it. That's all we're doing here. And when things get rough, step out of it. Tell the director, hey, cut. Okay, 5.
I
Okay,
do this.
yeah.
I do this.
And like, okay, like, ooh, wow, I got deep into
This
that.
is
Like,
intense.
holy shit, this is intense. And it's like, yeah, it's good, but you're doing good. You're gonna get the Academy for this. Keep going. Oh, really? I get back into and action. When you start to look at it that way, we can separate ourselves even from the emotions. But in order to have the response in the world, we step into it. But now I know I'm acting, and then I can act appropriately in any moment. Where before I was just like, I took any job I can get as an actor. Like, oh shit, this is what they give me up. It's it's
all I got.
It's all I got, because you have to do whatever. But that's how I start to look at it. So